Thank you for visiting ChristopherMedia.net. ChristopherMedia.net.
From Asthmacore Studios near Detroit, Michigan, it's Unregimented.
Gangsters, what's up, guys?
And now, here are your hosts.
Welcome to Unregimented, number 305. I'm Chris.
I'm Aaron.
And I'm Rich.
Oh, it's nice to be back. I missed you guys.
Hey, welcome back.
Yeah.
The Three Musketeers again.
Yes. Right? So, yeah, what's going on?
I don't know. How many debates were there in the time since we were last on the podcast?
There have been 7 debates since last June.
It doesn't seem like that many since last.
You're right, but when you say it out loud, doesn't it sound like a little much when you say it out loud?
They're doing one every month.
Yeah.
Right.
It's the first month of it's technically the first month of the election year. There's already been 7 debates. That's ridiculous to me.
And we're down to what are we down to?
What are we down to? 8?
4, 5 like legitimate contenders at this point? Is it what we're down to?
One of the primaries?
They got to start.
The Iowa caucus, I believe, is like in a month.
Okay. So a lot of this nonsense is going to be whittled down. A lot of this is just going to fall by the wayside. And we can get down to the good old-fashioned nonsense of Republicans against Democrats.
Yeah. So I don't know about you guys, but all I could find about the big story from this debate was what Warren not shaking Bernie's hand because she's mad at him.
Right. Yeah, they had a very stern talk and, right after the debate. And I'm sure MSNBC got on the horn with its best lip reader so they could decode and have the, all the hot, juicy behind the scenes takes. Turns out that it wasn't even much that they said. This story got dragged out because there was a period of wondering about what they said. And then there was a period of talking about what they said, which was, I guess, she said that she thought that something that Bernie said was basically calling her a liar, and she was calling him out on that. And he came back with, you're the one who was calling me a liar, and then stopped us. I was like, let's not do this here. And that was it.
But that's the biggest story, huh?
Well, I mean, congratulations for showing restraint when restraint's been in short supply for a while. Through this entire process so far. I mean,
people on stage talking about policy and things they were going to do, but this is the best we can come up with from this?
Here's why this is the juicy stuff, though, because I think most people are looking at this coming down to Warren and Sanders or Sanders and Warren. And I don't know, I'm imagining that I'm sure they've had this conversation, right? Or their people at least have had this conversation. And I don't know if you guys watch, you have never seen Veep, right? Because there's this great scene where she goes to ask somebody to be her running mate, and then the way that she phrases it, he thinks that she's going to be his running mate. And so they have this, obviously comedy ensues. But I think that's what they're going through right now. They're between the two of them, because I don't think either one of them is going to run with Biden, right? Can you imagine that?
No.
What does that look like? Biden and Sanders? Fuck no. First of all, Biden needs somebody younger. But with Bernie and Elizabeth, I don't think you need somebody younger. You can have 2 old people because your diversity is, look, you're getting a woman in there.
Well, with any one of these pairs, both people are slowly slipping into senility. Aren't they all in their late 70s?
No. Well, Elizabeth Warren just turned 70, and she doesn't look it, and she doesn't act it. And Bernie has always been Bernie. I don't know. That's why these claims, it's the same with Biden, though, isn't it? Biden has always been a gaffe machine. He's always said weird things and touched people too much.
Yeah.
And now they're trying to phrase it he's losing it. I'm like, no, that's the same Biden that was on the ticket back in the day. And it was no problem.
Yeah, me personally, I'm slowly drifting towards Yang or Mayor Pete.
Well, good luck with that. I hope you get a chance to vote for him.
Well, Mayor Pete's allegedly the leader in Iowa. He's allegedly leading everyone in Iowa.
Yeah.
Yeah, but see, that's what I keep hearing. You read one article from one source, Bernie's leading in Iowa.
Well, it's
You read another article from another source, it's Biden. Then it's Buttigieg. And it's
yeah, it
like,
depends where you called too. Yeah, I mean,
Right, and we're following these like polls week by week. I mean, yes, there's been fluctuation with everyone, but consistently, if you just plot that over the course of the however many months we've been following this shit now, it's really three that are consistently on top. It's Biden, Bernie, and Elizabeth.
yeah.
So that's all I'm saying is like, I think people were really latching on to what was going on with this conversation because they see it as representative of that struggle between the two of them, or this imagined struggle of who's going to be on top. Is Elizabeth going to run, and would Bernie take vice president, or vice versa?
I don't think either of them are making it. It's because the one through line you do keep hearing, no matter what, is Biden is always winning. Biden, in most polls, Biden is always the guy, and he's up considerably too. But again, too, in 2016, we learned polls were shit.
Biden has been up there, not always on top. I think where Biden consistently comes out on top is being put up against Trump.
Yeah, but I guess too, we're talking about things like I said in 2016. We're proven to be wrong.
well, according to the hard data, Biden does better with blacks than any other Democratic candidate. He's like Hillary.
He's
in
got a
that
black
aspect.
friend. He got proof. He had a black friend for 8 years.
Well, I don't know the science behind this statistical stuff, and I wish I could cite a source because I don't have the memory for that either. But I swear, if I did a little bit of digging, I could come up with the interview that I listened to. And this guy was a statistician. You know, it was his job to track this kind of data, and he was talking about how nobody really got 2016 wrong per se. It was just a few small mistakes that were made, and also our tendency to not want to believe what was right in front of us. Like, this can't be true. And I mean, since then, we haven't seen the polling results be that far off. So all I'm saying is, like, this idea that we can't trust polls anymore, I mean, you never could. They were just kind of a thermometer that wasn't very accurate, right? It would get you in the neighborhood, and you could figure out what kind of jacket to wear.
The way you're polling too, if you're still using the phone, you're talking to like people collecting Social Security. You know, if you're still using it like to calling people at their house phone.
Well, a big factor in the 2016 thing. This was in the interview that I was talking about. I wish I could remember who they were talking to, but he was talking about the idea that a lot of people voted for Trump and didn't want to admit that they would vote for somebody like Trump. Mm-hmm. And so the exit polls is what got them. All the people who didn't want to admit that they voted for Trump. That's why. So 2016 was just a blip, really. I think our polls are that we read about in the news are just as accurate as they ever were, which is.
Uh-oh. Can you guys hear me?
Go. Yes, we hear you.
All right. Just making sure it wasn't me that went away.
Wow, what the fuck happened?
Deep state, man. They didn't like what you were saying.
It seems to have kept on recording, so I don't know.
Well, no matter what, I'm still recording, so we're good on that end.
But one more thing about polls before we move on. The one thing I always got a problem, though, is like when you look at them, why isn't there a standard? Why is it like this poll's like we talked to 300 people, and this poll's like we talked to 1,200 people, and this poll's like we talked to 125 people? Like, why is there not? Because a lot of these things, the sample size is so small, yet they're putting out these statistics. Why is there no standard on this?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, who would set that standard, and who would police that? I don't know.
Well, like there's got to be some kind of governing body for things that poll, right, or something
the standard used to be just the idea of fair reporting, but now, Fox News wants to run a story about poll numbers, and they can do their own poll, and they can call 300 conservatives on their mailing list, and say, oh, it turns out 100% of the Republicans that we called still support the president.
But that's the thing, though, because of things like that. Things the other way too. Anytime I read an article on a poll, the first thing I do is I scroll down to the bottom and I see how many people they polled. Because it's like we talked to 125 people. Okay, cool. Thanks. I'm not even.
Right.
This article's dead to me.
I mean, I hear what you're saying, but I guess that would apply if you considered polls to be like a public service, right?
Well, they're providing information. Isn't that a public service?
Yeah.
I guess just for me, I would just use it relative to the population.
The politicians who are dumping money into these polls and are using these polls to leverage support from different groups by saying, no, I'm not as far behind, or he's not as far ahead, or whatever the fuck. They want them to be as accurate as possible. All right. Now, whether they are accurate or not, I think does hinge, especially with 2016, does hinge on what, Aaron, you said. A lot of people didn't want to admit they would vote for Trump. The exit polling was completely wrong in a lot of areas that it couldn't have been wrong in unless there was fuckery going on with stealing votes. People had to have come out and said, no, I voted for Hillary, or whatever. I didn't vote for Trump, and did.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just all there is to it. I mean, these things are, I think these are more useful to politicians because it gives them, like I said, it gives them leverage. They can go to the police union, look, you can, if you throw your support behind me, that'll give me blah, 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 blah. I'm closer to this than to my opponent than, and here's the proof, et cetera.
And in that respect, I don't think that they are concerned about accuracy in their polls. They just want the polls to show that they're winning so that they can show other people that they're winning.
Well, I mean, if you want to be that cynical about it, then I guess you're going to be, because it's like either, I mean, you can look at it either way, I guess. Either way is pretty cynical, to be honest with you.
You got to rile up your base. I kind of understand what he's saying.
It's an Ouroboros, right? It eats its own tail. You take a poll on a group of people that produces an opinion that then goes on to influence a group of people. So the accuracy of it doesn't matter, not to the politician. And I don't feel like I'm being cynical. I feel like this is rather practical.
I think it'll matter to politicians this year.
It's beneficial for them only to have, if it's a negative poll, they're not going to show anyone. So,
for sure, yeah. Hey, I felt the person that's telling them, the person that's going to let their followers know that they're down 10 points is not them. It's going to be their opponent.
To me, it just seems like it makes sense that if they're going to spend money and they're going to put money into getting these poll results, they're going to want them as accurate as possible. If they don't, and they just want them skewed, then they would just pay people to make up bullshit and fucking hide it behind a bunch of numbers to where no one's going to dig through and go, oh, this is ultimately a house of cards built on, a bunch of bullshit.
Right.
What's the point? What's the point of even looking at this?
Because I don't think they're concerned so much with accuracy as they are momentum.
But wait a minute, stop and think for a sec, guys. I think it's going to matter a little bit more this presidential election, it's a lot more than last. Because I remember a lot of people saying and hearing a lot of people say, oh, Hillary's got this wrapped up. It doesn't matter who to fight. You can vote for Stein. You can vote for fucking Nader. You can vote for Casper the Friendly Ghost. It's Hillary's election to win. Don't you remember every single fucking Saturday Night Live skit about the debates leading up to the election? I mean, the running joke was Trump would say something crazy and they'd cut to what's-her-face playing Hillary and she'd go, I don't even need to say anything, do I?
Yeah, but Rich, you're under the impression the country has changed. We're not different than we were 4 years ago. If anything, we're worse.
No, what I'm saying is they're definitely going to be like, oh, don't trust the polls, blah blah blah. You see what I'm saying? They're going to use it either way, one way or the other. If it says they're behind, they're going to say these are skewed polls. This is not the truth, but we still need to go out. You still need to go out there and vote.
Well, yeah,
if it says the Democrats are in front, they're going to say, well, don't trust those polls because it said that about Hillary in 2016. Look what we ended up with.
Yeah, but it's just going to me, that sounds like it's a precursor for either party I think we've all talked about this. No matter who wins, the results are going to be contested, right? If Trump wins again, the left's going to contest it. If Trump doesn't win, the right's going to contest it. So either way, it's going to be that party laying the groundwork for that.
I almost think Trump's immune to polls because Trump just gets out there and says what the fuck he's going to say, and his base eats it up.
Yeah.
I mean, That's why I laugh my ass off when I hear anybody who's a dyed-in-the-wool Trump supporter talk about a politician lying on the Democrats. And I'm like, every time Trump exhales, bullshit comes out of his mouth. Now all of a sudden you care? Don't act like you give a fuck about whether politicians. We're past that. We're over the top of the mountain of that.
Every poll that shows Trump is down is, you can't believe those polls. And then every poll that shows him up, he cites as if it was, carved into a stone tablet. As far as people eating up everything that comes out of his mouth, I saw footage of somewhere in the Midwest, like Wisconsin or something, at his latest rally, and he's talking about dishwashers, right? And I approved new dishwashers. And
I heard this.
Nuts, and everyone goes nuts. And I'm like,
and then he went on some crazy,
They've got an applause sign. They've got an applause sign, and they are tossing circus peanuts to these idiots. What the fuck is going on out there? He talks about how these new, you've used them, the new dishwashers. You got to run it 10 times to get your dishes clean. Like, what the fuck are you my dishwasher's old as fuck and half broken down, and I still run it once, and it's fine.
My reaction was more of like, this is a campaign rally? What the fuck are you talking about dishwashers for?
Yeah.
I heard an excerpt of that rally where he's like, I'm not going to talk about toilets. We all know about toilets. I'm going to talk about dishwashers. And then he was his cadence and his delivery sounded like he was wanting to do he's trying to do a stand-up special.
Right.
And I was like,
what's the deal with
he's up there, like he's Lenny Bruce, who's doing the set where he's on Johnny Carson, and you know what he's implying, but he can't come out and do his normal set.
Yeah, it was. I just chalk it up to once more. That's just Trump. I mean, at this point,
I think somebody probably said finally, look, why do you want to talk about toilets? There's other things that use water. It doesn't have to be toilets. And when somebody sees you say that toilets are a problem because you have to flush them 5 or 6 times, they
know you're full of shit.
they know that it's you. But A, the shits that you must take. I've seen what you eat. B, I know that you're a germaphobe, so you're mummifying that fucking hand with toilet paper before it comes anywhere near your anus. That's if you wipe your own.
He leaves a cloud deck that could be seen from space.
There's just a full-time plunger guy in the White House. Right? He's making like $125,000 a year and just stands there with the plunger.
And you know it's a gold
does
plunger.
the like Flintstones, like it's a living.
God, good old Trump. Whatever. God, he's just. Oh God! Every time I actually turned back on NPR for a few times this week, and I had to listen to a few of his excerpts of his speeches, and listening to people quote him, like news people quote him, is one thing. When he starts saying it and you're hearing him say it, you realize, like, this guy is a fucking idiot.
Yeah.
Like, hey, if you love him because you hate the Democrats or you hated Obama, just admit that. Don't act like he's some sort of very stable genius.
Unregimented.
ChristopherMedia.net. ChristopherMedia.net.
Unregimented.
There's a bit of debate happening on Twitter. Not too heated because it was all NPR people. But they were having a discussion about, because somebody had started it with the idea that NPR is normalizing Trump because they're reporting on him like he's a regular president.
Wow. But no, they're a news organization, fuckface.
And somebody else, one of the like anchors for, the morning show was like, what do you want us to do? Like scream, like run around in circles, wave our hands on air? Like, what is it? What does any of that mean? Like,
what's like the thing with Vince Vaughn, right? Like, what was he supposed to do? Punch him in the face?
Right.
When he was talking to him at the football game, and like, what was he supposed to do? What would anybody? Would you think anybody? Most people would just be polite. All right, how you doing? And as soon as he leaves, call him a cocksucker. That's what probably 99% of people would do if they were in the room with him.
Oh, absolutely.
It's because he inspires in the evangelical left, the people, the true believers on the far left. He inspires the same amount of hysteria that Obama used to inspire in the evangelical right, the right wing true believers. And they would like to think that if Billy Bubba would like to think that if he was sitting at a tractor pull and Obama came over and tried to shake his hand, that he'd tell him, get the fuck away from me, boy. Which I don't think.
No, he wouldn't. He'd go,
Yeah.
hello, Mr. President, shake his hand, and then call him a cocksucker behind his back.
Yeah, yeah.
Right,
And
but
vice versa.
I would implore you to do background checks on your outrage stories, because some of these are real and some of them aren't. Right, the Ellen and Bush story was definitely real because I follow a lot of these people, and I saw them tweeting about the two of them together, and that's how I heard about it first. And they were legitimate. That I shouldn't say legitimately outraged. I think it's, I don't want to legitimize their ridiculous behavior, but they were honestly outraged about that. I didn't see the same reaction to Vince Vaughn and Trump. And I think a lot of that's just trolling. I think most of that was such a non-story. And I mean, honestly, probably not surprising to most people who are already familiar with Vince Vaughn being one of the rare conservatives in Hollywood.
What is it Adam Carolla says? You know how I know there's a conservative in Hollywood? He doesn't offer his opinion freely about politics.
Right.
I've never heard Vince Vaughn just sit there and pontificate over and over and over about his politics.
Right. What is it? He probably says something like, I don't get into politics. That's too personal.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So, yeah, he's probably at the very least a center-leaning or a right-leaning centrist, which is, a literal Nazi in Hollywood. So, yeah, he probably keeps his opinion to himself. I mean, I'm sure there's plenty like that. I think the outrage came from the people who saw what happened, or not the outrage, but this is what I really think happened. And I guess you could file it under trolling. The people who saw the reaction to Bush and Ellen, who didn't agree with that reaction, saw that Vince Vaughn had, shook Trump's hand. And so it was like, oh, you know what that means? That means Vince Vaughn's canceled because you can't show any, you can't be friendly with the enemy whatsoever to these people, and kind of jump the gun on it.
Well, to be fair, the tweet that initially was, the first tweet was from the former editor of Deadspin, and he was, I'm sorry, I have to show you this, every single part of it. Like, okay, I get it. You're a fucking hero. Jesus Christ.
Well, yeah, Deadspin they're a joke of a fucking.
Dead's the operative word now.
Well, yeah, that too. But I mean, they're like Kotaku or fucking Jezebel. Okay, whatever, Deadspin, we get it.
And you're trying to fight my trolling argument with Deadspin. That's like journalistic trolling.
Well, I know, but he's the person who put the initial tweet out there, is the former editor.
Sure.
Well, it's okay. And I know, Aaron, you might know the name, but I mean, the quarterback for the New Orleans Saints, which, by the way, is where this happened.
Is it Odell Beckham?
No.
That's the only current football name that I know.
I was going to say, I'm shocked. You did name a football player, though.
It's just a cool ass name. It's a fucking cool ass name. I don't even know what this dude looks like. I ain't fucking with Odell Beckham.
He don't look like.
What if you put a junior on it? Does putting a junior on it affect it?
That's worse. That's worse. He comes from a long line of motherfuckers.
Because he's Odell Beckham Jr.
Here's the problem. He doesn't look anything like Odell.
He doesn't. No.
From Jackie Brown. You know what I'm saying? He's not that guy. He's more of a clown. Like he got into a slapping match with a piece of training equipment on the sidelines and lost on national TV.
He looks closer to Prince.
Just taller.
Well,
Much
you're
taller.
shattering my illusions of
But
football.
no, Drew Brees.
Now I'm definitely not going to watch.
Drew Brees, who plays for New Orleans Saints, and the game was held in New Orleans. His
Drew
family
Brees
was-
sounds like the dude that should look like Prince.
Yeah,
That should be the skinny dude that's like super fast, right?
fair enough. Yeah,
They got their names mixed up. That's all I'm saying.
But yeah, Trump and his trophy wife got a picture with Drew Brees and his family, and no sports people were upset about it because sports people don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's the people coming in trying to kick open the door and be like, oh, that were like, and people in the sports people were like, this is a non-story. This is a story to you. Take your story and go to BuzzFeed with it. Get the fuck out of our ESPN forum or whatever the fuck, Fox Sports, because we don't care. We care about the game that happened on the field, not the bullshit that happened in the stands for a photo op.
Ellen and W. No, all those people bitching weren't sports fans. They didn't give a shit. They're watching the Cowboys game.
Right.
Oh, hey, the ex-president's here.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it was the guy from Deadspin was trying to be stunning and brave, and the people who look at that guy and go, "You're a douchebag," were going, "Well, I'm going to call him on it, and I can get some outrage clicks. That's always good. That helps bolster the numbers." And it became, and a very non-story became a blip on the radar story. Because seriously,
don't discount like foreign influence either. And this is right up the alley of the types of, because not to keep digging up shit that happened back in 2016, but when they talk about Russian influence, a lot of people thought immediately about stories slandering Hillary, but it wasn't really that. It was way more the gun issues and school shootings and anything that just got people riled up. Any issue that could divide people in any way. It wasn't necessarily just attacking one candidate. So yeah, I mean, if the Russians or whoever else wants another Trump presidency and a second term, then this is prime meat for them to throw to the people.
I don't doubt
Further
that there's
divide them.
I don't doubt there's people from these countries that are meddling, that have an interest in one person winning over another. But to be honest with you, I think it's more just to cause fucking havoc and bickering and keep us at each other's throats, because what better way to weaken someone you consider an enemy than just watch them set their immune system to fight against itself and watch them rot from the inside out. And that's essentially what this shit does.
Yes.
They're injecting us with AIDS and not that good Magic Johnson AIDS.
Right, and this idea that people make jokes about Putin wanting his money back on Trump. I'm like, yeah, he's probably really digging this. Like, first of all, I imagine Putin wants to see Trump reelected at this point, because how is he going to deal with the person who replaces him if he doesn't?
Well, my theory more on Putin is it's more like because it's the rest of the world's watching the orange idiot. Putin can do whatever the fuck he wants.
Yeah, another 4 years of Trump means another 4 years of chaos in the U.S.
Yeah, in another 4 years, he can do whatever the fuck he wants over there. No one's really looking at him because we're too busy yelling at each other. Like that, it's like a look over here tactic.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this is one of the things that when Todd was doing his for lack of a better term, series on propaganda and et cetera, when I one of the questions I asked him was, who is for lack of a better term profiting from this, from keeping us at each other's throat? Who's getting something from this? Because that's probably the first place, at least the first direction you should start looking in, as to who's pulling the strings. You know what I'm saying? And
every other country,
yeah,
pretty much anyone below us on the ladder would benefit.
But if the question is, who's doing this, and I think I cannot remember. I think ultimately his answer when I asked him that was, we're just as likely to do it to ourselves as outsiders are to do it to us. So does it really matter in the end? And I'm like, no,
yeah,
because ultimately, human nature, you need an enemy. You need an other to set yourself against. And if you don't have one, you'll invent one out of your own ranks. You'll start subdividing yourselves up until you finally have something that can drive a wedge between the group and split the group into two. And then you can go, okay, now this is the hill we're all going to die on. Because it happens. All you can do is pick up a history book to see how it's happened. Study religion, anything. And I mean,
people need a common enemy. It's one of the things that'll bring them together.
I don't know.
Although together is it's starting to become a very loose term.
Yeah. Is there any really together anymore? I'll fight alongside you as long as it's, as long as I feel that you're helping me with my cause. And in a minute you're not, then you're back to, I'm keeping an eye on you at least, and you're a piece of shit at worst.
Well, I'm hoping that a lot of this is rhetoric, but, like we were saying earlier, we're getting closer to the primaries, and it's going to be whittled down to one team of candidates. And there's a lot of people that are right now still going, it's my candidate or nothing.
Cool.
Like if Buttigieg doesn't make it, then I'm voting for Trump. I'm like, I don't know how that makes sense, but okay.
Yeah, that makes no sense.
I mean, who knows? I'm hoping that the Democrats actually get their shit together once we find our candidate. But
well, yeah, but it's my turn to say to you, good luck with that.
Yep.
Because we could kind of shift the gears into entertainment here a little bit, because we'll look at this recent Stephen King tweet. We have more of the snake starting to eat, the snake eating its tail.
Well, I got kind of a different take on that than a lot of people that I've read their take on it.
Well, do you have the tweet?
That's what I'm. Yes, I'm looking it up.
It is.
See, this should tell you what you need to know. I looked up Stephen King tweet, and I have gotten more reactions and tweets about his tweet than the actual tweet itself on the first page of results.
Yeah. It says, as a writer, I am allowed to nominate. By the way, this is all about the Oscars. He's commenting on diversity at the Oscars. We got to set the table here. As a writer, I am allowed to nominate in just 3 categories: Best Picture, Best Adapted Screenplay, and Best Original Screenplay. For me, the diversity issue, as it applies to individual actors and directors anyway, did not come up. That said, I would never consider diversity in matters of art, only quality. It seems to me that to do otherwise would be wrong. And now he's canceled for that.
Well, first of all, I think there's a big lie being perpetrated on the Democrats by the so-called progressives, which is they're with them. They're not. These people, first of all, they're not progressive. They're regressive as fuck. They are just anything they don't like, silence it, shut it down, get rid of it, ban it. That's not progressive. That is the opposite of progressive. They are not liberal. They're not progressive, and they don't give a fuck about the Democrats. These are the people who say, if it's not my candidate, then it's nothing. They would rather lose to Trump than hold their nose and vote for Biden or Warren. These people are not on your side. And if you keep making the mistake of thinking these people are on your side and catering to these people, we're going to for sure end up with another 4 years of Trump. And Stephen King made the cardinal sin and Stephen King is an insufferable liberal the older he gets about every subject. I mean, to the point where he has put out tweets calling people out like this. That's how come he's now coming back, crawling, sniveling, asking for forgiveness from these people and saying, oh, I'm sorry, and I misspoke. And, all these people who are nobodies in the grand scheme of thing are coming out talking about, he's ignorant and he's uneducated about this subject. Really? Really? There's a lot of things you can call Stephen King. Uneducated and ignorant?
Yeah.
Bad writer, doesn't know how to write an ending. You know what I'm saying? A little too way too over descriptive in his prose. A lot of things you could say about the man. Those 2 things have never come to mind about the man, just to be honest with you. You know, I'd call him a hack before I'd call him ignorant or uneducated.
Isn't he one of the most outspoken liberal celebrities?
Yes.
Okay,
Absolutely.
Just checking.
That's what I don't get. That's where these people are not your friends, Democrats. If you are worried about beating Trump, they do not care. They will sacrifice the war to win these tiny little battles. Ask Napoleon how that works out in the end. Pick up a history book, folks. You want to beat Trump? You want him out of the office? Stop catering to people who do not give a fuck about you. They just don't care. What do they have to do to keep proving it? Well, this is just what I was talking about. If they can't find an enemy for the day, they will create one from their own ranks. Boom. Here we go.
Right.
This is exactly what happened.
King followed up with this with another tweet a few hours later. It says, the most important thing we can do as artists and creative people is make sure everyone has the same fair shot, regardless of sex, color, or orientation. Right now, such people are badly underrepresented, and not only in the arts. And a lot of people are framing that as walking back his comments earlier.
It does kind of sound like it.
I don't see that as a walking back at all. I see it as definitely clarification. I mean, let's break down the first tweet.
It sounds like his publicist wrote it, honestly.
What he's talking about in the first tweet is specifically what he votes on, right? And here's the problem with every time that we have Oscar nominations come out now, we have to talk about diversity. How many men and women are there? How many black people versus white people? And that's really the wrong question. His second tweet clarifies the first one in the respect that that diversity has to be done on the front end. There's no point in giving an award to something that you didn't think was the best movie just because you want to see somebody of a different skin color or that has a strong female lead.
It cheapens it.
What good does that do on anything? Yeah. Like make more movies with more diversity in them? Absolutely. But don't vote with that in mind. I mean, it's just,
that I agree with. Because
it's the same thing with hiring. Like, interview a diversity of people. Don't hire the one that you think other people will approve of. Hire the one that's the best candidate still. But it's the same with the Oscars. You get more people up there, you're going to have the more diversity you have in the entertainment that's given to people, the better chances you are of having something that really connects with somebody and that can really take off like a movie like Parasite did.
But I think also part of the reason a movie like Parasite has taken off and other movies from especially Japanese horror movies have found such a dedicated audience in the West is because they don't pander to anybody. They're not like, oh, we're going to make this movie and it's going to be so diverse. They just make a movie and they do their best to make the best movies they can. And if it just so happens that these are countries that are overwhelmingly, you go to Japan, overwhelmingly Japanese. There's not a whole lot of non-Japanese people in Japan. Not a whole lot of non-Korean people in South Korea.
It is really funny. People citing Parasite being included in the awards as an example of diversity. I'm like, that doesn't have a diverse cast at all. They're all from the same country.
No, because you know what diversity has become? It has become a code word for not white. It has become a way to say not white people.
Well, yeah, and just like
yes,
people of color is a way to say everybody but white people. It's double speak to get around saying what you really mean. It's putting perfume on a pig.
What you really mean is I want to see more than just white males in leads in movies.
And that's fine. That's fine. Then say that. Just stop trying to pretty it up and act like, you're oh, well, people of color and diversity and, the representation. And no, if people go into making a movie and all they're doing is trying to check the little boxes off to make sure they got their quotas, that's tokenism. And all that does is breed hate and discontent.
Lee, you remember, what was it, 2 years ago, Frances McDormand talking about she's not going to work on any movie that doesn't have an inclusion rider? You're essentially talking about a list of quotas. Like, how ridiculous does that sound?
I mean, if you're a good enough artist, people are going to want to work with you. I think regardless of all the social check marks that you could check off with by being hired. You know what I'm saying? I who in their right mind is going to turn down a movie to start in a movie with Denzel Washington? Who in their right mind is going to turn down a movie? You know what I'm saying? Like if you are that good, who's going to be like, no, I'm not going to work for the Coen brothers. They're too white and straight. First of all, are we even sure they're straight? They are kind of strange. But I mean, you know, like really, then you're an idiot. Then don't, you know what? Shoot yourself in the foot for your bullshit. You deserve this. You deserve the hit you're taking. That's ridiculous. It's just as ridiculous. I'm not going to work for him because he's a black director. Well, then you're an idiot as well. And you can shoot yourself in the foot and fuck your career up over your nonsense. Let's let them do it and hey, you know that Last Jedi, the one all the critics loved, the new Star Wars that all the critics loved? Let the past die. Let these people die off. Kill them if you got to. Okay? Stop trying to drag us back to your caveman mentality about this shit. We get it. Stop trying to force everyone to go into a movie and count. Oh, what check marks is this? Oh, how many black people did I see? How many people did I think were not gay?
But you know, it's a personal story here. Like, you guys know I'm trying to switch careers and I'm trying to do it in the entertainment industry. And because of the current climate, I now have in the back of my head, is it going to be harder for me to get a job because I'm a white guy? Thanks a lot.
Probably not in certain demographics, like certain formats. Remember, I tried to ask that question because I was. Who was it? I cannot remember. But in Specs, we had a teacher who he played us his on-air tapes, his air checks, and he was a black guy. And as you know, Dave Chappelle jokes, he had his job interview voice on his air checks. You wouldn't have known he was black whatsoever by his air checks. But yet, when he played his air checks from when he was on an urban station, you definitely heard his black scent more. And I was sitting, I had my hand up, and I'm like, okay, so do you think that affected why you got hired at, you know, what station? Did you basically tailor, you know, your demo reel to the station that you were applying for, et cetera, et cetera? And it was like, I couldn't even get the question out before I got jumped on, and I was like, fuck it. I don't even care. Whatever. All right, we're all going to act like no one's hearing this, right? We're all just going to sit here and play. Yeah. We're going to play pretend, right? Fuck you. There's supposed to be a room full of adults, and we're all acting like children. Fuck every single one of you. And that's when I just said I'm done. I don't even give a fuck anymore. Go ahead. I just let it go. Why? That's a valid question. That is a very valid question.
But but to get back to where we're talking, we shouldn't have to count. And I feel too, we've now all been put in this mindset where we're just everything we're doing, we're sizing everything up. We're counting how many men, how many women, how many white people, how many non-white people. Like, isn't it the complete opposite of what Dr. King was talking about 50 years ago?
But the problem is, Chris, these aren't the majority. These aren't the people that are. This isn't the majority, and this isn't the people who are going to ultimately do what needs to be done if you want to, like, you know, move society forward. These are people who just want to dig their heels in and go, my way or nothing. And it's that. How does it move us forward whatsoever? Haven't we learned from hundreds of years in this country of you know, puritanical Christian bullshit that when you dig your heels in and go my way or nothing, you basically stall progress socially? And all this is the same thing coming from the other side. So maybe some gatekeeping needs to start happening. Maybe be like, no, we're not letting you in with your bullshit. Get out of here with your nonsense. We got this. Adults are handling this. Go sit in the corner and pout and post on your fucking with your blue check mark on Twitter and leave us alone.
Now you're minimizing youth culture, Rich. We can't have that.
This isn't just youth culture, though. This isn't just youth culture. This is it doesn't. You don't have to be young to get sucked into this bullshit. You don't have to be young to be sucked into any bullshit. I mean, like any good piece of propaganda, any good piece of brainwashing, it does have more than just a few grains of truth in there. You have to start with the truth. Isn't that what Goebbels said? Any good piece of propaganda starts with the truth. The truth is, yes, there's a lot of inequality in society, in Western culture, in American culture. Absolutely, 100%. Is the way to go about dealing with it to turn everybody against everybody else, to the point where if someone tweets something that the people have to come out and get outraged about it, and it turns into a fucking 2-day topic in the 24-hour news cycle? No. What gets lost is people with rational voices. You ever see an interview with Bill Burr when a self-proclaimed feminist goes to interview him? She goes, "Why isn't there more female comedians?" And he goes, Don't bring that shit to me. Get that weak shit out of my face." He's like, if you're female and you want to be a comedian, write jokes and go tell them.
Yeah.
Don't come to me expecting me to step aside and be like, "Oh, okay, I'm sorry that I'm successful." He goes, I got on stage and bombed just like everybody else did and figured out my material. It's time for you to do the same. End of story. Like, because the question, it was a got you question. Why aren't there more female comedians? I don't know. Because more female comedians don't get up on stage at open mic nights.
It's also a gotcha question because there's no right answer to it.
Yeah. No matter what answer he gives, he's fucked.
Even though it's true that there are more male comedians than female comedians, any answer to that might lead to why would be sexist automatically.
And have we lost sight of things like census data? There are 2% more men in this country than women. There are just numbers. There are more of us. There might be more of us in some things than others.
Yeah, but 2% really doesn't account for anything.
Yeah, that's
2% of 350 million isn't nothing. What's that?
2%'s the shitty milk, Chris. Come on, man.
Hey, that's 7 million people based on our population.
Right, but it doesn't tell you there being 2% more dudes in the U.S. isn't a reason why there's more males in any given industry.
I'm just saying, it's sheer numbers game. There's more of us.
How come dudes are getting all the jobs?
Happen.
So they just all gang together and just bum rush the place until we give them jobs.
I'm just saying, since there's more of us than you, it might happen in some industries. And also, too, here's another. Oh, you can't say this anymore. Our brains are wired different. We gravitate to different things.
Well, I mean, yeah. What are you thinking? Stop. Can't say things like that.
This is one issue me and my wife always kind of get into about, like, these commercials now about She Can STEM. And I just sit there and I go, we both went to school at the same time. Did the boys go to math class and you went somewhere else? Did the boys go to science class and you went somewhere else? Because the last time I checked, I was sitting next to girls in my math and science classes. And most of the time, the person with the highest grade in both classes was a girl.
Boom. Thank you. Yes. Yeah. But here's the thing. If you're a girl and you're good at math, let's say you're good at math, but it doesn't interest you as a career to pursue, engineering or something like that. Okay, great. Then find something that does interest you and go with it. I don't understand,
well, she'll always tell you too. Society pushes women into different things, and I say, well, bullshit. Because the last 30 years, the last 2 generations, we've been telling every kid that they can be whatever the fuck they want. So put that argument away.
It's just, okay, what society is pushing kids into different things?
Like maybe in the 50s and 60s, maybe in the 70s we were, but I mean,
we're not that far away from the Barbie doll that said math is hard.
Yeah, but that's 50 years ago. I'm saying, like,
no, it's not 50 years ago. That was like 15 years ago.
The math is hard Barbie doll. You lost me on that one, but I'm having worked at a Toys R Us stock. I'm not shocked. I'm really not, because there's the newer Barbies are for the kids, the ones that then there's Barbies that are for the old ladies who haven't given up their child. I guess that's like the highly detailed Star Wars action figures for us nerds. It's like the collector's versions of these Barbies, and I can picture one that said, "Math is hard." Like, yeah, okay. It sounds like Malibu Stacy, though. I'm just being honest with you, man. You sure you ain't getting the Simpsons mixed up in here?
Actually, and Aaron, just it's because we're old, and it could be 15 years or 30. It was 92, but yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
but still.
Yeah, like I said, 15 years. What?
Well, look. Here's the thing. First of all, if you're going to vote on something like a screenplay, et cetera, don't you automatically walk into the situation understanding that the voters are pretty much giving their subjective opinion on this? Because one screenplay could be amazing to you, and be shitty to me. Stop trying to put such black and white objective standards on something that's subjective. And this has nothing to do with Twitter outrage or the so-called progressive culture or whatever. This is just people being ignorant about art. I mean, to me, I've said it many times before on this show. It's stupid to give awards away for art. You're objectively the best movie. I mean, you could say objectively, maybe the best sound editing, something like that. Like something that you can physically,
Maybe. I could see how you could get closer on the technical aspects. But yeah, I don't know if it exactly qualifies as an objective fact.
But
that one sound mix or one score would be better than another.
But something as abstract as words on a page that someone has to read and then start the ball rolling on the process of putting them to the screen to the screen and everything involved in that. There's a lot of moving parts there. And I mean, I don't know how they read the screenplay itself and they go, this is a good screenplay. I've read a few screenplays and it's just like, it's not a novel. I'll tell you that. It's not like sitting down and reading a really good book. Like to me, that's where a director comes in and he's envisioning stuff in his mind as he's reading it, the surroundings. That's where someone like a Tarantino or a Scorsese or, a director like that fills the world around the words with things that make it interesting to watch. Otherwise, I mean, that's one of Kevin Smith's, criticisms for Kevin Smith is that he just points the camera and shoots. Nothing interesting's happening besides, the two guys talking or three people talking, especially his early movies. Well, he writes better dialogue than most people. Sorry. At least until this reboot movie. Oh, shit, I saw that. Whew. If you ain't a Kevin Smith fan, I'd skip that one. But that's for another day to talk about. That was rough.
No, really?
Oh, boy. Yeah.
Well, I don't...
Unregimented.
ChristopherMedia.net. ChristopherMedia.net.
Unregimented.
I've seen... Looking at the list of nominations, I haven't really seen any of these films. Did you see any of this shit?
Yeah.
Well, I saw the Tarantino film, which, I mean, if he gets an award for this one, then I'll just consider it a lifetime achievement because that movie was, well, first of all, how the fuck does Brad Pitt get nominated for supporting actor in that movie when he carried the whole fucking film? Brad Pitt is the lead of that film, and I know that DiCaprio plays the quote-unquote lead in the fiction as the fictional actor, but he's not the lead of this film. He's not even in the end, and it's not a.
He comes in at the tail end, but yeah, the end is more centered around Brad Pitt's character. What happens if you haven't seen the movie? I'm trying to not give it away to you. Everything
that actually happens in that movie centers around Brad Pitt's character.
Yeah, now that I'm thinking about that middle part when he goes to the ranch, it's like, yeah.
I thought it was a cool film, but I like the idea of him winning best film for this. I'm like, yeah. Like I said, I haven't seen a lot of these other films, but
to me, to call it Once Upon a Time in Hollywood was exactly the right title because it's a fairy tale set in Hollywood.
Sure.
It's a happily ever after about a situation that was not happily ever after. And it's set in Hollywood. So it's exactly what it says. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. The Irishman I saw, I think it was more of a throwback to older Scorsese movies. It didn't have the frantic editing of The Departed, Goodfellas, Casino. I know a lot of people said because of that, they found it boring. Me, I don't mind that. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love Goodfellas. Goodfellas to me is edited perfectly, especially once Henry Hill and everybody start getting coked out because you feel like you're on coke watching that movie.
Yes.
You're like, holy shit, I need to drink some shoe polish and slow my heart down. I'm about to OD on coke and I haven't done it in 10 years, So I thought it was a good movie. Joker. Here's my theory on Joker. I think Joker's a token. This is I think all these Joker nominations is to get the normies to watch the Oscars.
I'm still kind of torn on that. I haven't even watched the whole movie, honestly. I watched like almost a half hour of it, and I just didn't like it. And then I gave it another shot. My daughter wanted to check it out, and then she got skeeved out by it right after he shot the dudes on the subway. And I was like, well, I'll go back and watch it and at least see how it ends. But I haven't. So obviously I don't care that much how it ends. Also, I know how it ends.
I think Joaquin Phoenix did a pretty good job bringing
Joaquin Phoenix always does a fantastic job.
He didn't do oh shit, brain fart, big brain fart. Brokeback Mountain, dude. Heath Ledger. He didn't do a Heath Ledger impersonation. He didn't do any, you know what I'm saying? He didn't do any of the people who had been there before, done the Joker impersonations, but he didn't go so far to left field like Jared Leto, where you're like, what the fuck are you doing with this character? That's not the Joker. I don't even know.
He made
who
it
the
his
fuck that
own,
is.
yet he kept the essence of the character. Is that what you're getting at?
His descent into becoming the Joker makes sense for his character in this movie. And considering that the Joker has so many different stories about his origin in the comic books, and you really don't know which one is true, if any of them, I think it works as just a one-shot, one-off movie of this is a psychopath's memory of how he became who he was, and he is the most unreliable of unreliable narrators, to the point where at certain points near the end of the movie, it's the lines between reality and his what's happening in his mind begin to blur severely. I think it works in that type of situation, like a Taxi Driver, King of Comedy type way. And I think it's supposed to be an homage to those type movies. And those movies are not for everybody. This is not an anti-hero movie. This is an anti-villain movie. He doesn't start off the villain, but he damn sure ends up as it. He starts off just as another schlub on the street it's not one bad day. It's not falling down. It's, one bad life mixed with, a system that, when it came to mental health, failed him, fails a lot of people, to be honest with you. I mean, there's a lot of commentary in that movie that people, I think, missed. I mean, those two guys he kills on the subway, one of them, I was like, did they purposely get someone that looked like one of the Trump sons? Like, I'm not even bullshitting. Go back and look at that scene. Go back and look at that scene. The slick back hair, the one with the big ass horse teeth. I can't remember which one that is. The dark haired one. I was like,
did it look like extra from American Psycho?
Yeah, except for not as pretty. Because that was a bunch of pretty boys in that movie. I recently rewatched that movie and was like, God damn, there's a lot of people in this, and they were pretty when they were young. Like, these guys would have a hard time in prison. The booty bandits would be all over them. But Marriage Story, I watched. I excellent performances. I'm not going to touch the fucking how that movie made me feel, but it elicited a very strong response. Mm-hmm. And if that's what art is supposed to do, then it's great art. But I never want to watch the movie again.
Yeah, I like Noah Baumbach, and I want to watch this movie, but I know that it's going to be kind of an ordeal watching it.
I heard it's two people yelling at each other for 2 hours.
It's going to be a lot that cuts close to the bone in that movie. So I have to kind of gird myself.
Well, you know what? There's a reason I don't want to. You guys are confirming that. You guys are both divorced and you don't want to watch it, and I'm married and I don't want to watch it. Because I'm newly married and I'm enjoying it.
Now, Jojo Rabbit is one I'm definitely going to see.
To watch.
Yeah, same thing with 1917. And Ford and Ferrari. Little Women, this is like, what, the 8th remake of it?
Yeah.
Really? Must we keep remaking this movie every, 5-6 years?
That's the one that's causing the uproar.
Missed me with that shit.
That movie didn't get nominated for Best Director, so that's one of the ones that's causing all the uproar about diversity.
And Parasite is one of those movies that I'm going to have to be in the mood to sound and watch because it is all subtitles.
Yeah. No, that will never happen in my house. I'm fine with subtitles. My wife hates them. If there's subtitles, it could be like the best movie ever. Nope, I got to read the whole time. Fuck this.
No, I don't mind that, but I mean, if it's all subtitles, like, it's okay. I got to be in the right mindset. Like, this is going to be 2 hours of. I almost feel like when I see a movie in a foreign language that I don't speak, or in a language I don't speak, it doesn't have to be foreign, whatever, but you get what I'm saying, and I read it, in subtitles that I feel like I have to go back and watch it again to see the facial expressions of how they deliver the lines now that I know what they're saying. You know what I'm saying? Like I can't pay attention to both as closely as I'd like. Mm-hmm. It's kind of hard to take in, appreciate an acting performance when you're reading a novel at the bottom of the fucking screen half the time. So, honestly, but I seriously think this. I think Joker this was the Academy going, this is to get people to tune in.
Yeah, how do we get the Marvel crowd to watch this?
I think it's probably going to go to Parasite or 1917, and I maybe he'll win Best Actor, but I think that's all, unless it's technical awards. I don't really think Joker's going to win anything. I seriously think that's just a honeypot to get people to tune in. I really do. Even though out of all the women that are nominated, I do find this interesting. Scarlett Johansson is nominated for Best Actress and Best Supporting Actress.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Which means there's no way they can let her walk out of there with both of those, right?
Or, because of all the uproar, she walks out with both of them.
Well, if she does, that's like saying, Meryl Streep, you suck. I mean, isn't it basically just like like Meryl Streep, Angelica Houston, whoever's considered like the greatest actress so far in history hasn't done that. I mean, Scarlett Johansson, she's good, but I don't know. That's like greatest of all time area, man.
Again, I don't know about these specific performances because I haven't seen a lot of these movies, but Charlize Theron is who she's up against for leading role. Renee Zellweger, the woman whose name I can never pronounce, Saoirse.
Oh, Saoirse Ronan, the chick from.
Yeah, I know who she is.
Yeah, what movie was that? The one I got engaged because we walked out of. She was in Laurie Metcalf. What fucking movie was that?
I don't know. I didn't see it. And for
it's obviously
supporting
really
actress, she's up against Kathy Bates, Laura Dern, Margot Robbie. That's a toss-up.
If I'm going to base how good an actor does on how much of a reaction they get from me, Laura Dern needs to win it because I hated Laura Dern and I hated that cunt in that movie.
Dude, there's both Charlize Theron and Laura Dern. I've never seen a performance of theirs that didn't affect me in some way. I think they are both amazing actors.
I would say the same about Kathy Bates.
I'll put her in that category too. Yeah.
I haven't seen Richard Jewell, the movie she's nominated for, but when I saw her in Misery, I was like, "Oh, I hate this bitch!" Like, kill her, James Caan. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, hit that bitch with the typewriter. That's right, take that. But then when I saw her in Primary Colors, I was actually like rooting for her. You know what I'm saying? Like I appreciated the job she was doing acting. That's what I was reacting to, not her as a person. You know what I'm saying? Because she's not like Nicholson to me. You watch a Nicholson movie, especially the last 30 years, you're watching Jack Nicholson do a Jack Nicholson movie. I mean, let's be honest. About Schmidt being probably the only one where he stretched himself out a little bit. That's why I think Joe Pesci might win for.
Oh, and well, never mind. I was going to say there was what was the other one? The '90s big hit that he was in.
As Good as It Gets.
As Good as It Gets.
See, I just thought he played Jack Nicholson with like OCD in that movie because I remember he was really particular, but he was still kind of that asshole.
All right, yeah, I hear you.
Swaggering. It's the swagger that makes Nicholson. But no, Joe Pesci in Irishman. Joe Pesci in a Scorsese movie, you think of a certain type of character. You think of crazy, over the top.
Shooting Spider in the foot, trying to get him to dance.
Fuck him and his whole family. They're all fucking rats. Yeah, it's like. But I mean,
I love just the reaction after that scene. Like he shoots her in the foot, and like one guy gets up to help him, the other guys are bitching. Like we're trying to have a nice game here.
And when he kills him the next time, it's like. They just throw their card. De Niro throws his card and said, "God damn it, I ain't got any fucking lie. You're digging the fucking hole this time." I don't dig a fucking hole. You think it's not the first fucking hole I ever dug? What the fuck, I've dug plenty of holes. But no, I mean, Pesci's not that in this movie. He's much more reserved, and it's almost scary because it's like, oh boy, if he's that reserved, what you know what he's capable of. He's just not playing his hand. He's keeping his hand close to the vest.
I got a theory about this movie. You think this is the last hurrah? You think this is Scorsese getting all these guys together in a movie one more time before they start dying off?
Pesci's last hurrah.
Well, it's just they're all a couple of them are pushing 80, right? Scorsese included.
Yeah.
It's like let's get them all in one more movie before we all start dying. I mean, I know it sounds morbid, but do you think that's true?
I kind of do. And it does. By the end of that movie, it feels like it capped off a certain era for Scorsese that started with Raging Bull, which was the first movie that De Niro and him, and Pesci and Scorsese worked on together. It really does. Like it's kind of a. You're not sympathetic. You're not sympathetic really to certain characters, but it ends on a note that's so melancholy. It's like, oh shit. Oh, okay. All right. It reminds you that, hey, this shit ain't forever, folks. You know, none of us here, it's cliche, but none of us here are getting out of this alive.
I have every intention of watching it, but it's so I respect Scorsese enough as a director that, like, I understand some of his beefs about film, and I think has certainly the track record to prove that his film warrants a sit down, right? I'm going to watch this whole thing and absorb it. I'm not going to pause it. I'm not going to get up and make a sandwich or come back to it tomorrow. So now it's a predicament of who has 4 hours I can borrow.
That movie is like 3 hours and 15, 20 minutes long, and it's every bit of that long. It's every bit of that long. It really is.
Way to sell it to me, Rich.
Dude, I'm just being honest with you. Like, it doesn't like, oh my God, but it's not that frantic pace. And if you have that, if your attention span has been MTV'd or Goodfellas and Casino'd, frantic editing with a Scorsese movie, The Departed being another movie like that, it's probably not going to hold your attention. I can totally understand people go, I was bored. I go, yep, I get it. Some people can't handle those type of movies. I completely understand. That's just how it is.
No, I'm not afraid of being bored. Certainly, I mean, unless Scorsese has developed cataracts or something and can't see what he's shooting.
Well,
it's gonna look great.
One of the things I keep hearing about this movie from more than one source is apparently you can make his face look as young as you want, but you can't make his body not look in its 70s.
Yeah, there's a scene where De Niro is supposed to be like, a throwback to a young De Niro doing some. Remember the stomping of go home and get you a fucking shine box of that guy.
Yeah.
I can't remember his name.
Yeah,
There's a scene that's supposed to be on par with that, and you're watching De Niro and you're like, don't stomp too hard. You might start your gout and kick it up in another notch. You know what I'm saying? Like.
There's probably a guy behind him keeping him propped up.
I was like, oh God, it just didn't look right. Like, and if that was the best take, and knowing Scorsese, he probably pushed De Niro to do as many takes as he could, so that probably was the best one. I would have probably we need to go with a tighter shot. this shot, because it's a shot from. Farther away, and it really shows that that's almost 80-year-old man trying to kick a 30-year-old man's ass.
Well, yeah, look, if we can put De Niro's young face on his old face, and we can put De Niro's young face on anybody, let's just get a body double in there.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. The one thing I'm ashamed to admit this, I've not seen The Two Popes. I have no idea even what the fuck that movie's about.
Mandy and I saw the first 10 minutes of it, and we were done.
I can't tell the difference between any of these popes. There was the young pope, the two popes, and the new pope, and I don't know which one is which.
Well, I think they released New Pope, and people said they had to go back to Pope-a-Pola Classic. That's all I know about the new Pope. But
I'm holding out for Pope Zero.
Jonathan Pryce, that's homeboy from Brazil.
Say what now?
Jonathan Pryce, wasn't he in Brazil? Or am I thinking?
I don't know. It's one of those where I'm like, I know the name.
I know he was in Game of Thrones and like Glengarry Glen Ross, but I'm pretty sure he was in. Let me see here. Yeah, he was in Brazil. He was the lead character.
Oh, yeah, that dude. Is he the Pope?
Apparently, he's one of two.
Anthony Hopkins is the other pope.
Yeah, someone was trying to. Okay, yeah, it's the Nazi Pope, Pope Benedict.
Yeah,
and the cool Pope Frankie, the Pope who wore the black Sabbath shirt.
I believe Hopkins plays the cool Pope, and the other guy plays the Nazi Pope.
I didn't realize that was him in Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Oh, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's Anthony Hopkins is the Nazi Pope. Ratzinger, whatever.
Oh, yeah.
It's funny because he looks more like the current Pope.
Hopkins does.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But he played the other Pope? That's weird.
Yeah. It's Pope Benedict the 16th. Yeah, retired in 2013. Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's him. Oh yeah. He looks like the Lord Vader. Every time I see the guy, I think of the Emperor. I'm like, Jesus Christ. Like, this guy just looks evil. He looks like fuck doing an exorcism. He didn't inject the demon in you himself. And that's enough of me pissing off of our Catholic listener base.
Unregimented.
ChristopherMedia.net. ChristopherMedia.net.
Unregimented.
We got a little bit of time. Do we want to go to movies, TV? Because I know there's a big thing you guys kind of wanted to talk about.
Oh, The Watchmen? So,
Yeah.
HBO made an announcement that they weren't going to be pursuing a second season of The Watchmen. And I don't know. I knew already from having listened to interviews with Damon Lindelof and him talking about the process of making Watchmen and the reaction to it. And this is a person who, when HBO tossed him, they're like, hey, we have the rights to Watchmen. Are you interested? His first reaction was, fuck no, I'm not touching that with a 10-foot pole because it's considered a classic. It's revered by Damon Lindelof himself, and it's kind of like, how can you do better than that? What's the point?
Yeah, and as far as I've ever read or heard, there's only been one person that Alan Moore has ever essentially gave his blessing to even attempt to work with the property, and that's Terry Gilliam.
Yeah.
He said if anyone could direct a Watchmen, and this is well before the Watchmen movie come out.
Be a horrible choice. I love Terry Gilliam, but no.
No, but this was his, he said if there's anyone who could do it, it's Terry Gilliam. And I'm like, I love me some Time Bandits and Fisher King and all that, but I don't see it. But okay,
Right, because I think that Alan Moore considers Watchmen to be absurdist, and I think a lot of people read it as very serious.
Well, there's a video essay floating around on YouTube about how Alan Moore basically destroyed modern comics inadvertently.
Oh yeah,
because the Watchmen was such a deconstruction of the stereotypical superhero that all these very poor imitators got stuck in the deconstruction part of it and have been tearing down.
Well, they misunderstood the base concept of it, right? And they were feeding into fans that were misunderstanding. They were feeding into fans that thought that Rorschach was the hero of that story, and so they went, "Oh, grim and gritty. That's what we need to do."
Yeah, that's the other thing. Either they got stuck on, the deconstruction of superheroes, or they got stuck on the, let's keep it down and dirty and all that shit.
Right. Which
is how you ended up with, a lot of Frank Miller stuff, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, but back to Lindelof real quick. We can circle back around to talking about Watchmen itself, but he's said even before this announcement with HBO, when he was doing interviews for the series when it premiered on HBO, he was very open about saying, I don't know if there's going to be a second season, and there would only be a second season if there was a solid idea for it. Because, as I was saying, he went into the process, like, first of all, rejecting it out of hand, but then talking to some other writers and people started tossing around ideas about what they could do, and he felt like he actually came up with an idea that would work. And it was never made with the intention of there being a second season. The story wasn't thought out past what we saw in that final episode.
And I mean, if that's the case, and he has kind of an open invite from HBO, but he feels he can't come up with anything to be a worthy season 2, then let it stand on its own. I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I mean, who knows if he has an open invite, but I can only imagine if he went, hey, I got another idea. Well, first of all, he's like, when Damon Lindelof calls HBO answers the phone, yes, we'll greenlight your project.
It's like that South Park episode. Hello, thank you for calling Netflix. You're greenlit. What's your idea?
Yes. Exactly. And you know, at this point, anything that he makes, I'm going to watch. I'm probably going to love it, but I'm definitely going to give it more than a fair shake.
Well, the first few episodes, I think it was just because I was still in the mindset of Schneider movie, not original comic books.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was the 5th episode, the episode where you find out where Adrian actually was, where to me, everything just kind of went click. And every episode after that, I was like, okay. And since then, I've went back and rewatched the first 4 episodes, and I'm like, I get it. They're setting up the things, but
yeah,
it just, to me, it got better from that episode on.
The first 4 suffer a little bit. I think they're great, but they suffer a little bit from being overly concerned with turning everything on its head. Nothing is what you expect it to be, right? And
I can definitely see.
And especially those first couple of episodes, you get this idea that like they're not really going to follow up on anything that happens in Watchmen, and it turns out they do completely. You know, they tie it all together. But yeah, it definitely started out as in like, this is not the Watchmen, this is not going to be the same story. And maybe some of that was the trepidation that Damon and his co-writers had with handling this material, and knowing that if they tried to pace it and present it like the original Watchmen story, then first of all, they're not adding anything, right? They're just regurgitating, and they would suffer for the actual fans that they are counting on to tune in and spread the word about this show's actually worth watching are going to be turned off by that. So I don't really fault them for some of the rockiness of the first couple episodes. I think everything else was so solid. The directing, certainly everyone's acting, everything else is so solid in those first few episodes that it can all be forgiven.
Well, we're going to get into spoiler territory for pretty much any part of the series at any moment with what I'm about to say. So if you haven't watched it, give yourself fast forward to 10 minutes or so. When you saw that he was on a moon in space, and then you saw it was Jupiter's moon, first thing I said to myself, like I said it out loud, was, he's on Europa. And the reason I said that is because that was a plot point used in Alpha Flight by John Byrne.
Okay.
He stranded Vindicator on Europa under the ice, and he had to get back to Earth, and et cetera, et cetera. And I was like, I highly doubt that's where they got the idea. You know what I'm saying? Because it wasn't a 1-for-1 exact. It wasn't even. It didn't feel like a ripoff. It felt more like
homage,
a coincidence. You know what I'm saying? Than anything. And, to be honest with you, there was no super being creating a place underneath the ice of Europa for Vindicator in the comic book. It was, he was literally underneath, taken in by the life forms underneath the ice in Europa and nursed back to health type shit. Real comic book shit, especially like 80s comic book shit.
Right.
But it was just funny because the one shot when they showed Jupiter and he's on the surface of Europa, I was like, God damn, that is fucking close to that panel in that fucking Alpha Flight comic book. But like I said, it wasn't. I didn't pick up on anything besides that it was just like a coincidence, or maybe I'm sure comic book fans worked on this. They were like, well, if this is your idea, then we'll kind of throw a nod to that in there, and how we frame this shot. But
yeah,
like I said, that's a deep dive into comic book nerd. I'm sorry.
And I think again, going back to the first couple episodes and the way they were presented, I think a lot of people came away from those as saying, oh, this is going to be like an anti-comic book show, right? This is going to be something that pushes back against like the Marvel stuff. And it is and it isn't, much like the original Watchmen is, right? Like the original Watchmen is taking heroes that archetypes that and remixing them and doing stories that push back against the glossiness of superhero comic books. But Watchmen is still a superhero comic book, right? It still has punching and outfits and people flying and violence. I mean, it's all there. And, I can't remember. I was listening to a podcast where they were talking about it. They were like, referred to it as a comic book, and so somebody corrected them. They're like, no, it's a graphic novel. I'm like, motherfucker, first of all, there's no difference. And if there is a difference, a graphic novel is not a collection. A graphic novel was made to be one complete thing. Watchmen was released as a comic book, individual floppies that people could go buy, from their local comic book shop each month. Well, not each month. It ended up being delayed horrendously. But yeah, it's still a comic book, right? And this is, yes, it played with anti-superhero trope stuff, but it was still a superhero show at the end, And again, if you don't want the ending spoiled, skip past this part. But yeah, they have the big battle. The spaceship comes down. The blue guy appears. Ship blows up. The world is going to fucking end. So it checks all those boxes. It just gets there in this winding and very interesting path. And I would expect no less from Damon Lindelof.
Yeah, like I said, ultimately, I really liked the show as a whole. And if it does end up being just a single season on its own, I think it's a pretty damn good piece of art. So,
yeah,
it definitely went in some places that I was like, okay, I really wasn't expecting that. And it didn't do it in a ha 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 gotcha, like smart ass, like, yeah, we subverted your expectations for the sake of subversion. Like,
right.
No, it ultimately it was serving the story. Okay. No, it was fun, and it did turn into one of those shows that was fun every week to like, okay, I'd watch it, and then I'd like watch a couple YouTube videos on people who were following it and they give their theories or something, like the first season of Westworld, and see who ended up getting closest to what actually was going to happen. Because I think it was about halfway through the first season of Westworld, someone goes, man, whatever his name is.
Harris?
Ed Harris's character and the guy from It's Always Sunny is the same person, man. I'm telling you, man. And people are like, dude, shut up. How high are you? No, dude, you're wrong. Watch. It's going to be the truth. And sure as shit, I was like, oh, shit. And the stoner guy was right. Maybe the government does have a car that runs on water, and they're not letting us know. Because it just seemed like the most crazy conspiracy theory to throw out there out of nowhere. I was like, really? Then I started watching the show that way, and I'm like, yeah, I can see it. All right, fair enough. But yeah, that's it. Now, from what I've heard, is that the next up on we're going to take a already existing IP and add to it is a Lord of the Rings television show.
Oh yeah, the Amazon show. They've been working on that for a while.
Yeah, I mean, that, as far as it's supposed to, I unless I read wrong, it's supposed to come out this year at some point.
Maybe I can fall asleep during that one too.
And then, and then I just read this today. I don't know how accurate it is. Supposedly, there's going to be an HBO live action Green Lantern Corps show.
Yep, it's going to be on their, what are they calling their streaming service? HBO Max or something like that? Yeah, because there's some question as to what DC's long-term plans for their streaming service was, considering that they are owned by, what is it, Verizon? T-Mobile? No. AT&T?
I think it's AT&T.
There you go. AT&T owns, DC, and it owns HBO and all that. And when news started coming out that this is all such a big fucking mess. Like, there's already, why are they calling it HBO? Anything. There's already an HBO, and you can already pay to have it streamed directly into your home.
And it used to be HBO Go, now it's HBO Now, and now it's going to be HBO Max. And
right, and those are actually two different things. They coexist. HBO Go is if you subscribe through a cable provider and still want to stream, and HBO Now is just streaming.
I feel like HBO hasn't earned the right to be this extracurricular. Right. You know what I'm saying? Just put out one streaming service and just be
right. Well, to muddy the waters even more, there are going to be Warner Brothers DC properties that will have shows on HBO Max, and the Green Lanterns is one of them. Doom Patrol is also going to be one of them, which already had a fantastic first season on the DC streaming service, which I guess is going to continue. So that show in particular is going to appear on both platforms. I mean, they're going to have to bundle this in some way, right? There's probably going to they'll do the HBO Max, and then they'll bundle it with the DC streaming service for a couple of bucks extra or something.
This needs to be the decade where they figure that shit out. It seemed like the last decade was the rise of all the streaming services, and this needs to be the decade where they kind of get it.
They unfucked themselves. Yeah. The streaming services unfucked themselves. Figure out what you're doing. Figure out how many are going to be for real and how many are going to be around. That way we can figure out how much we got to spend. Because right now there's just way too much. There's no point in cutting the cord because you're spending almost as much as you used to on cable if you get every streaming service now.
Yeah, because I'm a PS View guy, and it goes away here in like 14 days, and all of the research I've been doing, I'm probably just going to end up getting cable with my internet from Xfinity. I think I'm going to end up spending like the same amount of money.
Well, this is interesting, though, because Xfinity is offering, what is it? Oh, it's called Flex, right? And Flex is like a little cable box that you hook up to your modem and your TV, and then you can get you can sign into your streaming services through that and have one place to watch them all through your TV.
Oh, you mean like a Roku, like I already have?
Right, yeah. They're kind of like that. But what's interesting about it, because I actually got one and I like it. But I only did it because it was free. I pay for internet through them, and they offered it free for internet customers that aren't also subscribing to cable. So Xfinity seems to think that the streaming services aren't going away.
No, it's just more. It needs to be. We need to control the chaos. There is too much shit going on in streaming land. HBO, have one thing and put all your content there. Yeah.
I don't know if it's going to get. I think it's going to continue to get messier and messier, and eventually, then we'll have a third-party service that will pop up that will act as an intermediary, right? And so you just give it a list of shows that you want to watch, and it'll plan it out. So you're like, okay, you want to watch Miss Maisel, so we're going to subscribe to Amazon for 1 month, and then we're going to cancel it. And then, the last season of Orange is the New Black is coming out on Netflix the next month, so we'll do a 1 month subscription. I mean, you could manage this yourself, but they're counting on people just throwing their hands up saying, fuck it. I'm not going to try and go through and plot out what I want to watch for the next year and how I'm going to pay. I'm just going to pay for everything, or I'm going to say double fuck it. And I heard Pirate Bay's back up.
Wow, there's a name I have not heard in a while.
Pirate Bay is back up, and
I didn't even know it left.
They actually now. Who knows where these numbers ultimately come from, but the mysterious person behind Pirate Bay has released some statistics for downloads, and you see it steadily ramp up to 2014, where then it drops considerably, and that's where their original servers got raided, people went to jail. It never went away completely, and then you see it slowly creeping back up, and it's almost to that high that was in its peak in 2014.
Well, I mean, I don't know.
So I mean, maybe
I may know
these
something.
companies
I may
will
not
get
know
together.
nothing about Pirate Bay, but yeah, it's a good thing. Maybe I don't know. Okay,
What's the thing?
it's a thing.
Another well, another part of this, not just, I think streaming took a hit, not just because of the Pirate Bay and other sites getting busted and shut down and things got a little harder to find, but at the same time, there are a lot of high value streaming packages that were coming out. You could get into Netflix for less than $10 and have a shitload of new shows to watch, and people were taking advantage of that. But yeah, I mean, it's just going to continue to be. I mean, maybe they'll actually look at the streaming, the pirating side of it, and go, maybe we should combat this by keeping our prices low. But I don't see that happening. I think pirating, they're just going to charge enough so that the pirating happens and is negligible.
I mean, there's always going to be a pirating
It's
to
like
a certain
socialist.
extent. Yeah,
Some people pay through the nose, other people don't pay at all.
I did read this literally like 30 minutes before maybe like an hour, excuse me. So literally an hour before we started recording tonight, from some comic book resource website, one of those sites. Taika Waititi's been approached by Lucasfilm to do a Star Wars movie. And I'm like, don't give him a movie, give him a series.
Give him anything he wants.
Well, I know, but
He directed that episode with the two stormtroopers that were trying to shoot the can or whatever it was,
yeah.
and punching Yoda.
Well, he was also the IG droid.
Yeah,
I mean, and then I
was
love
some of the best parts of the Mandalorian.
I love that What We Do in the Shadows mockumentary. That's a fucking hilarious movie, and
Yeah.
I still got to watch the television show. But yeah, I mean, I'm just saying, like, just give him something that, like, he can. If you're gonna give it to him, Disney, give it to him, and then get the fuck out of it and let him do it.
I think they know that.
I hope so. I really do.
They gave him a pretty long leash on Thor. He went out on a limb, and it ended up being the best Thor movie.
And completely changed Thor in the MCU.
Yeah, he made Thor great again.
And he didn't even have to build a wall to do it.
Nor did he need a red hat.
Right? No, we're going to build a Rainbow Road.
Yeah. All right, so is that it?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can make fun of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame next week. They're always easy to make fun of.
They're not going anywhere.
Yeah, but hey, I want to say it's nice to be missed. I heard through the grapevine for you guys that people were asking, like, hey, what's going on? Is Unregimented coming back? It's good to know that while we were on our little unplanned hiatus that we were missed. So thank you, everybody. We won't let that happen again. It's Aaron and Rich kind of explained what's going on, and yeah, we're moving forward. We are on Twitter at UnregimentedPod, and yeah, wherever you can listen to your favorite podcasts. Jesus Christ, the list is huge. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spreaker, iHeartRadio. I mean, it's at ChristopherMedia.net too, if you just want to cut out the middleman. So thanks to everybody who's listening, and see you next week.
See ya.
Later, guys.
unregimented.
ChristopherMedia.net. ChristopherMedia.net.
If you like this show, please tell a friend. Please make sure to rate and comment on all your favorite Christopher Media shows. Please follow us on Twitter and like and share us on Facebook. You can subscribe to all ChristopherMedia.net shows for free on ChristopherMedia.net. Thank you for listening, and thank you for visiting ChristopherMedia.net.
Thank you for visiting ChristopherMedia.net.